what's up, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of Roses, Rings, and Roast. This was the finale week, the big 2-night event where they took up 4 hours of my life for this week. So we need to hop right in because there's a lot that happens, like a lot that happens. Like, I don't even know. The first episode, Monday night, they go and both Hanna Anne and Madison are supposed to be meeting Peter's family. So the first one they do is Hanna Anne, and they go in and it's like kinda awkward. Peter was like all over her and like really touchy-feely with her. It was too much. Like, I would have felt awkward as Hanna Anne if like he were just like all over me right in front of his parents like the first time I met them. But Barbara loved Hanna Anne, and Hanna Anne really, the only thing she talked about was how much she loved Peter, and that's all they really talked about. She talked to both the parents individually, but just expressed more how much she loved and cared for their son, and like started crying at one point, so they loved her. And then Madison came, and before Madison even went in to meet the parents, her and Peter talked, basically tracking back to the week before when they got in like, not an argument. She hit pause because he was intimate with other girls and like that bothered her, and so they were both trying to figure out how to work through it, and they decided that they were gonna fight for it together, like their relationship, and just push through. So then when Madison was talking to the parents didn't seem all for her, and that was because Peter also told them the problems they had been having before she went in there, and the parents kept saying there are so many differences between you. Like, how are you gonna work through this as a couple? You guys don't like to do the same things. She's more about her faith and he's not. And after Madison left, Peter was talking to his family, and even though Barbara wasn't really fond of Madison for being all about her faith and from that stopping her to like being in love with Peter at this point, Barbara was like, oh, but I prayed to God and I think you should pick Hanna Anne. The iconic scene that we all talked about was Barbara talking about Hanna Anne and saying bring her home, which no one was expecting and no one was super fond of. Like, we literally would have thought it would have been like 1,000 other things before Barbara was talking about Hanna Anne. Barbara talks about later in like the tell-all was that Hanna Anne told them how in love she was with Peter, and that's what his parents want. They want someone who's going to be all in for their son, and Madison just wasn't all in because of the problems they were having. And so then they go to have the one-on-one dates, and Madison has the first one-on-one date, and they go looking at this rock up in a helicopter. It's like a really spiritual rock, and Peter talks about how she is like his dream girl and saying all these things that it's like he has to pick Madison. Like, you can't say that stuff and then not pick Madison. But then Madison on the date is actually like, I don't think we can work through our problems and I'm gonna walk away. So Madison leaves. Peter's very distraught and upset about it and doesn't really know what to do, and he still has to have his one-on-one with Hanna Anne. And so he kind of talks to Chris about it, but still ends up going on with the process, and he goes to talk to Hanna Anne on their one-on-one. During the night portion of their date, when he was talking to Hanna Anne, he talked about how his heart feels like it's torn in 2 directions, which then was a problem for Hanna Anne because she was like, I want him to be all about me and I want him to love me just as much as I love him, and it just sucks to hear that he's like so torn, which she doesn't even know that Madison's not there anymore and that she went home. Then that's like the end of episode 1. So then episode 2, first of all, Kelly was there at the live show for absolutely no reason, but I was pissed they didn't address Kelly like at all. So anyway, they open up, and now Peter's talking about how in love he is with Hanna Anne, and like this whole montage of him saying that what they have is true love, and he calls Hanna Anne's father and asks for his blessing, and he gives it to him, and then he's ready to propose. The part where we are all looking forward to, where Chris was like, we just found this out, it was the fact that Hanna Anne was hung up on the fact that Peter had said his heart was in 2 different places, and she almost considered not coming to the final rose ceremony, and she was gonna walk away. But what Hanna Anne didn't know is that Madison already left and that he was going to propose to her. Hanna Anne still does show up, and Peter talks to her and says how beautiful she is and says all these things to her, and then he's like, by the way, I wanted you to know that like Madison went home 2 days ago. But he doesn't give the full extent of like why she went home, which we're gonna talk about later, why that that's a problem, and then goes on with the rest of his proposal speech and proposes to her. And Hanna Anne says yes, and she like can't believe that he proposed to her. Neither can the rest of us watching this, really. I could have told you that he was more in love with Madison, but Madison walked away, and so he was like, well, my mom really likes Hanna Anne, so I guess I'll propose to Hanna Anne, which is not the way you should walk through life. Word of advice, don't do that. Ever. So then we see Peter go talk to his family. This is about a week after the engagement, and Barbara just cries of how happy she is. She's like, you picked the right person, thank goodness. And at this point, we're all like, okay, Barb is kind of like a little psycho. First of all, she pretty much told her son who to pick, which like, you can give advice on who you think he should pick, but you can't be like, she's the one for you, like this is your true love. And Peter even said it when she did that. He was like, you can't say that, Mom. And you know why he said that? It was because he was in love with Madison. But Madison went home, and so he picked Hanna Anne. Ooh. Then we get a scene where Hannah flew out to LA, and so this is about a month or two after the engagement, and right away you can tell that it's really awkward and uncomfortable. I guess they had been like talking on the phone before this, and Peter was actually still struggling with his feelings for Madison. And he thought that it was just because it was a breakup and it was really hard because he was in love with her, but he figured because he is in love with Hanna Anne as well, that he would just eventually get over it. And it's like all other breakups where you just have to move on at some point. And so they're talking about it, and Peter ends up saying to Hannah, I can't give you what you want. And so they break off their engagement, and Hanna Anne's pissed, and she has a lot of choice words for Peter. For Hannah, it was a really big deal that she only wanted to get engaged once. So she had a lot of choice words for Peter about how he shouldn't have even proposed if he had those feelings with Madison, which we all can agree with, because no one wanted Peter to propose to Hanna Anne, because we're like, we know you're still in love with Madison. At least y'all didn't get married. So then Hannah comes out on stage, and she pretty much just digs into Peter some more about how he should have never done it and that he needs to grow up and be a real man. And we applaud. Hanna Anne handled herself a lot better at the live show on stage after all of this than any of us were really expecting. Chris says, like, by the way, I went out to Auburn. And so then we see a clip of Chris Harrison visiting Madison, and he tells her about how he proposed to Hannah, but their engagement is now off, and that Peter is single, and it is because he is still hung up on Madison. And that's when Madison reveals that she is also still in love with Peter and that she regrets what she did. So then Chris actually invited Peter over to his house, and then Madison surprised Peter by walking through the gate to talk to him. So Madison flew out to LA to see Peter, and then they like talk and say how they are both still madly in love with each other, and they're like, what are we gonna do? And then the scene cuts, and then Madison actually comes out on stage, and Peter and Madison decided that they've been talking some since seeing each other back in LA like a month before this, but they've been talking on the phone all the time since, and they're working through their problems, and they're gonna take it step by step. So they're not technically officially boyfriend and girlfriend, but they're making it like that way. And so during this whole time, they keep showing like Barbara's face. When they're showing the clips that they filmed like in LA previous to this, they keep showing Barbara's face in the corner, like, how's Barbara reacting? And so then while Madison's out on stage, they ask Barbara, like, because Barbara did not like Madison like at all, and made it very clear that she wanted Hanna Anne. And so they asked Barbara like how she feels about this, and Barbara talked about how the reason she was all for Hanna Anne was because Hanna Anne outright expressed how madly in love she was with Peter. And when Madison met them, she made them wait 3 hours before coming inside because they were having that serious talk, and then came in and did not give his parents the reassurance that she was in love with their son or that she was ready to accept a proposal, which is why Barbara didn't like her. They asked Madison how she feels, and this is where I didn't like what Madison said. Her response to that was that it is what it is, which is not how it should have gone. To me, I feel like you should have at least apologized to Barbara or like Peter's family for making them wait like 3 hours, but then obviously saying like, as you can see, like we are having a really serious talk right before we came and met you, but I am so sorry that I made you wait. And then she said something like, but I can't like change my values or who I am because I wasn't madly in love with Peter then, because we had so many things we were working through. And so then Barbara kind of rebuttals. Barbara and Peter were also, Peter is his father. They were both talking about how they're so different that it just doesn't seem like Madison and Peter would be compatible at all, and that it's going to be a very challenging relationship, and so that's why they weren't a fan of her. But Barbara said that Peter is compromising himself, but Madison won't compromise herself, which for the whole values thing and how Madison feels about that, she shouldn't have to compromise. Like, that's her faith and those are her values, and I completely agree with that. She shouldn't have to compromise that at all. I don't know if they were referring more to the lifestyles and how Peter's a little bit more out there and likes to party, whereas I guess Madison doesn't. I don't know. I don't know what they were referring to as compromising. I hope it wasn't about values, because that's something you just can't compromise on. Point blank, period. But then Chris was trying to make it a little, he was trying to alleviate the tension, and he asked Barbara like,
obviously family's important. It's massively important. So, Barb, how do we turn the page and give this a shot together?
Chris, he's going to have to fail to succeed. That's it.
This is where she lost everyone. No one liked her anymore. So she said pretty much that they would never be a fan of Madison and that they should just break up. And then everyone got really angry about that. Like, the whole audience that was there got really angry about that, and we're like, you can't say that. You just can't run your son's life. Peter's in his like mid-20s. Like, he needs to be in charge of himself. And so they were pretty much having this like family feud like on live TV, which was really like stressful for me to watch and also awkward for me to watch. So yeah. And then it just kind of ended. So Peter and Madison are the ones together. Season 24 of The Bachelor has come to an end, which means this series of Roses, Rings, and Roasts has come to an end. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you have any video ideas. And I have a little something special coming soon, hopefully. I'm waiting for a package to arrive, and then I have a video idea. So, and it may be one of my more special videos that I get to do. To me, at least. I don't, like, it's just something that I'm really excited about. So I hope it follows through, and I hope I can do it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Please tell me that was recording.